Without further ado, I am pleased to present to you this year's Guggenheim honoree, Dawn Porter. To everyone at home watching, please help me welcome her to AFI Docs 2021. Hello, Dawn Porter.
Hello, Mr. Clayton Davis.
Look at you. Look at this. We just ran through your whole little filmography really quick and just felt all the emotions. How are you feeling?
it is very emotional. One thing I'm seeing is that so many of the people that I filmed with over the years have passed on. Um, you know, um, Margaret from Spies of Mississippi, um, obviously the congressman. And so I'm just so happy to have them with us forever that way. But also it's strange. Like I remember the time that each one of those like segments was recorded. And so just seeing it, like, it makes me feel like I'm back there. So,
Yeah.
it's pretty wild.
Yeah. I one question I have for you, and usually I always end with this type of question, but I felt like I wanted to start with it with you today. With every filmmaker, I feel like there's a piece of themselves that they unload onto their films. But in the case of documentary filmmakers, I've always felt like it's a little different. There's a piece of the story that they're covering that gets imprinted onto them that they carry with them forever. And sometimes I call it like either a heart blemish. It's just something that like is weighty, that's something that just kind of changes you forever. And you've done quite a few films with subject matter that, it can be very difficult. Do you feel that you've, like, every story you've taken on, has it been like a weight on you? Like, do you feel like you have carried them with you as you go to your next project?
Absolutely. But I would say it feels more like an imprint. It doesn't feel weighty. It feels necessary. It feels like someone has to bear witness to this. And it kind of pushes me to keep going. Like when you find that moment where I feel like the greatest happiness is when you find that moment that you feel like the person really expressed themselves and really showed you kind of what they're all about. So when David Wheeler, the Sandy Hook father, says you get the leaders that you deserve, and he just was so that was one of the hardest interviews I've ever done. I mean, he sat in the chair and I started crying, and it was so generous of him to do, because obviously who wants to relive the worst moment of their lives. And he did it. He was really grateful to Pete, really grateful to the president. And I felt like when he said empathy, when he pointed to empathy, of course we were all experiencing the lack of it with Trump, but also I felt like it's a reminder to all of us to have empathy. Like, if there's one thing the pandemic did, it allowed us to slow down. And even now, as I'm getting back to normal, I'm like, what do I care if I have to wait 45 more seconds before someone makes a left turn? Like, so his that statement, and that's what I mean about an imprint. Like, I don't always carry it as much as I should, but
Yeah.
they're there. And then, so yeah, and that's what I love. This is such a special experience to see them all together, because there's these moments in all of those. And Travis says he's going to tattoo names on his back, and he did that, and we filmed him then doing that. um it's Travis is very literal. But for him, and I think for a lot of public defenders, they do feel the weight. They feel something that most of us do not see, which is, if you read America is the most incarcerated nation, that's not the same as thinking about Jacquees Williams in that moment saying, I'm scared. And Travis feeling the weight. He should be scared. Going to prison is not a joke. So yeah, so I do feel all of them. And like that's the best part.
Yeah.
When you feel something because of your work, you know.
Well, first, I have to say this to full disclosure. The Way I See It was my favorite documentary last year. I was very public about it, about how much I loved The Way I See It, because it was the thing that we knew that, but the empathy line is the line of the film, of one of the lines of the year, of just like the things that we knew, but we just didn't think about, talk, people always say, you don't appreciate your parents while they're there. We don't appreciate your president while you're there, because when it was over, I was like, wait, like, we didn't know what we had. So I always tell people, watch The Way I See It and have a good cry, like just take it all in. But let's look at your filmography from Gideon's Army, right? In 2013 when it premiered. I always like put that part, when it premiered. Now up until Rise Again, Tulsa, and The Red Summer. What do you see as the difference in Dawn Porter then and Dawn Porter now, besides just still looking fabulous, but like all those years in between, what's the differences that you see as a filmmaker?
There's definitely a difference. I'm much more confident now. Gideon's Army was my first film. Um, I didn't kind of know what I was capable of. I was so lucky to have really good partners who would push me because, spectacular editor and Matt Hamachek, producer and Julie Goldman and HBO, but also Orlando Bagwell was who, so Just Films, the Ford Foundation arm that was funding films, had just started. Gideon's Army is one of the first films that Orlando, who of course was one of the directors and producers on Eyes on the Prize, was one of the first films that he funded by this first time filmmaker. So, and what Orlando did was, I like get teary about, he would watch scenes with me and talk about them. And because we were just talking, I could do that. It wasn't like directing. Like he would just say, what are you trying to express here? Tell me about this person. Just really encourage me to think about kind of what we were just talking about, like the core, the essence of these public defenders. And he would just keep saying, what do you want to say? What do you want to say? And I just always think about that, which is you should have something to say. Like we don't just, documentary people, we don't just pick up a camera and point it someplace and hope it's like, it's not TikTok. There should be some of yourself in it, and it should make you think. And the process of editing allows us such a luxury of really thinking about what it is we want to say. So I'd say much more confident. I'm probably I think that, though, on the flip side, I had the luxury of time with Gideon's Army. Nobody was sitting around waiting for my movie. And so we had 3 years to work on it. We had a full year plus to edit. And I think that allowed me to go deeper with the characters, allowed me to really think about what we were doing. And now, it's good and bad, but there's such a demand for nonfiction, and I have opportunity to do so many things that I don't have like 3 years to work on one project anymore. And as people kind of like tease me for being so prolific, but there's a lot of stories to tell, and I want to tell them. So I wish I had that time, but I'm glad I have this confidence.
Okay. Note to Hollywood: give Dawn Porter all the time she needs. Like, let's just give her some time. But I think you already touched on this, a little bit of the way you work and you collaborate with these creators. And I'm thinking in particular the music, like in John Lewis, Good Trouble, up until the graphic design work with Rise Again. Um, what has that felt like for you to, like, because I think what happens is documentary filmmakers, I think it's undervalued as like difficult. I think people think you just point a camera and talk to people and then it's kind of over. And there's like a process making a movie. So talk about like how all that comes together for you, and how it's difficult to make a film.
there is a lot of collaboration, and there are so many layers to documentary. That scene with David Wheeler is not that scene without that music. That scene, Bobby Kennedy, the train, it's definitely about those images and the editing, but it's kind of all about the music. It's just that perfect, for me, it was that perfect heart swell that was like bittersweet. It's beautiful music. It's not sappy. Our composer just like hit the exact right note for that music. And so I do collaborate with people repeatedly, because I do find like over time we get to know each other, and you get kind of a language. So Tamar Kali did the score for John Lewis. She's an African American woman, and she felt the movie, and so we talked about this before, but I asked her to write a modern spiritual, and that's what she did. She watched the whole movie, and we would send her pieces, but she really scored the movie, like from beginning to end. And she wrote a symphony, essentially. And that was her love letter to John Lewis, but to all Black people. It was a love letter to land and to ancestors, to resilience and strength, and hope. And so there's I just love, I would go around like humming those songs. They just like penetrated me in a way. And so we're going to work on something else together soon that's a little more abstract, experimental. So stay tuned on that. And she's like me. She had no business saying yes, but she was like, I must do this project. So there's that. And then of course, like the editors, I've been so lucky to have kind of a rotation of people depending on who's available. But when you find that those people and you respect each other so much that you can, I like to see what other people see in what I've shot, because you can fall in love when you're in the room, and it could be terrible shooting. And so you need somebody that you trust to say it's not what you think it is, and then you can argue and your relationship can take it. So the collaboration part is so much fun for me, because people really, like, when you respect people and give them space, they lean into their craft too. And so inevitably whatever I brought to them is better, because we're all in it. So.
First of all, I love Tamar Kali, and she had such a great year last year. In addition to your film, John Lewis Good Trouble, she was just all over the place. So I'm looking forward to what you guys do together next. But I'm looking now at your list of films again, and it's always kind of, it's a little strange sometimes to just read them in a row, because I feel like you just kind of gloss through it. But I wonder, for you as someone who made these films, is there one scene in any of your films in particular that you hold as either dearest or the most difficult for you to even rewatch, because of symbolism, what they were talking about at the time, just anything that just, because they're impactful, but it's always different for the person who's creating it.
I think some of the scenes in John Lewis movie are hard for me, because we didn't know he was sick. And so we made that film with so much joy, and I thought I'd be traveling with Mr. Lewis, and he would be riling people up. And, he's a person who fed off of energy in the best way. When he says the 3 civil rights workers are looking down on us, that always gave me a chill, because I had done Spies of Mississippi. John Lewis was there in Ohio. He was one of the people who went to investigate after they went missing. So there's so much overlap in these films, that I see something new in them with new projects, and that's really fun. So John Lewis one is the hardest. until now, I haven't watched. I don't actually like to watch my movies after they're done. Like, so whenever there's premieres and screenings, like I usually slip out. The only time I stayed was we got to show President and Mrs. Obama and 16 of their friends, the way I see it, at a theater, socially distant
Uh-huh.
and safe last summer, and I stayed for that screening, mostly because the Secret Service wouldn't let me out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Once you're in, you have to stay in with them, and they don't make jokes. But so my husband and I and our producer Evan Hayes sat behind the president and first lady and watched them watch the movie, and they cried and they laughed and they would point out like this, that, or the other. So that was I don't like watching usually because I'm like, oh, I should have done that, or oh, why didn't we do that, or oh, we, it's just it's this parade of could have beens. So I just don't torture myself anymore, and I just don't watch it. I remember the very first time when Gideon's Army premiered at Sundance, and we get there, my whole family's there, my parents. There's this
The worst critics, by the way, is always family when
yeah.
family comes.
And we're all sitting there, and the lights go down, and I feel my face getting really hot. And I thought, this was a terrible mistake. What have I done? If this is failure, it's the most public humiliation. And that's all I could hear. Like the movie's playing, I wasn't even watching it. It was like, this is so stupid. This is so stupid. Why did I do this? Why did I do this? I just want to make jewelry. And then of course, and then you're listening, like, are people laughing when they're supposed to laugh, or like they crying when they're supposed to cry? It's just torture. So I don't watch anymore because it's torture. So.
But I think of it's funny how life comes full circle. So you're sitting there with President Obama and Michelle, and you're watching them watch the film, and then Gideon's. Everyone, everyone's watching you watch the film. It's kind of like every time, like, I see a movie that I love and I make my wife watch it, or anyone knows this, you watch them watch the movie because you want to see their reaction. So I can only just staring at them and just being like, "What do you like? Are you gonna cry? Because I cried here."
And my poor husband is the worst victim of this, because I'll make him watch things before they're finished, and he's watching and he's thinking, and I'm like, "What'd you think? What do you think?" He's like, "I'm watching." I'm like, "Well, what did you think of that part right there?" And he's like, "Am I supposed to feel a certain?" I was like, "You don't feel a certain way watching that?" So like, he's like, but then like my greatest joy is when he goes, "That was good. That was good." He's a very understated person, but he's like my worst victim. I make him watch rough scenes. I make him watch outtakes.
So he's in all the 4-hour cuts, is what you're saying? Like all the 4-hour cuts. That's good.
Yes.
That's amazing. Let's talk about your relationship with your producers, because obviously you touched on this, but you don't make the movies you get to make without the producers that say go ahead, go forth and make. So you told me this, like, some of the great stories of just sitting down, getting John Lewis made, and sometimes you think you're about to do this whole like 100,000 pitches, and then sometimes you just hit one and you're like, oh, okay, I get to make a movie now. So I'll talk a little bit about that.
Producers are probably the most underrated job. I think everyone understands what an editor does. Everyone understands what a composer does. People don't necessarily understand what a producer does. So there's people do different things, and all of my producers are creative producers, which means, I think filmmakers can do producers so much injustice when they're like, just go get me money to make my dreams come true, instead of, producers see different directors. They have so much experience that they bring. So I've worked with Laura Michael Chisin on Bobby Kennedy, and also John Lewis, Evan Hayes on The Way I See It, Laura Dern on The Way I See It, Jamie Lemons, and then Marilyn Ness on Trapped, and Julie Goldman, of course, on Gideon's Army. And I learned something from each of them that I bring like to my own producing now, which is how to kind of like create creative space. A lot of what they do, besides figuring out the money and the distribution, is to create creative space, so that you can think. Um, and and everybody hates notes, right? Notes are like, I don't want notes. Forget it. I hate you all. No, 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 notes. But you know what I've come to like really understand, because the reason you don't like notes is because it makes you feel insecure. That's the truth. It makes you feel like you didn't do it well enough, or whatever. Um, but what notes are is passion. It means somebody, like I remember this one note from Marilyn Ness, and she's like, "Why, oh, why would you delete blah 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 blah?" And but I was like, she's responded to this so strongly, she misses it. Like that's what you want, is somebody who's deep into it with you. So, um, all of the producers have relationships. They know when to push. And each of them has this moment where they like turn up in a way that I couldn't expect. For Laura, it was, for me, well, I got really sick during making Bobby Kennedy film, and she made sure that it went forward. Like she did a lot of heavy lifting when I was hospitalized. Like she really, I'll just never forget that, ever, that she kept everything on track. Um, and then in John Lewis movie, when I wanted to have this crazy like rent a stage and circular screens and da 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 da, she didn't blink. She didn't say like, we don't have another $50,000 for your maybe idea. Because you don't always know if every idea is going to work, and that's the thing. You have to have a strong stomach to be a documentary person. And then Evan, we started The Way I See It, and the first trip like was a trip to India, and I just couldn't swing that with my whole life. And Evan's like, I'll go, and went to India with Pete and did like that shoot. So there's just a lot of like passion for these producers that these movies don't get made without that passion.
Looking at yourself now as an executive producer, getting into that role, how has that shaped you in your personal growth? Because I imagine at some point you're like, maybe not, that you're gonna see the next little Dawn Porter in someone, and you're gonna just grab them and say, let you go make a movie and I'll produce and I'll be behind this. Like, has that gotten you ready for that moment, or is that a moment that's coming in your career?
I hope it is. Like, I really hope it is. And I've executive produced. I did Philly DA. I don't know if you've seen that series yet. And the moment I saw what they were up to, it just reminded me of Gideon's Army, and I remembered what I needed to hear while making Gideon's Army, which is, you need someone to zoom out because you get so intensely related to these people that you're filming with, and so the filmmakers from Philly DA, they lived across, their office was across the street from the DA, so they could film every day, and they were shooters, so they didn't have the limitation that most of us have, which is either time or money or both, because they were shooters. And I was like, guys, I know you love that, but so like anything would happen. They were deep into editing, and they were like, we're gonna go shoot today. I'm like, you have to stop shooting. You have so many hundreds of hours, you can't go through it. And just encouraging them, shooting was their comfort zone. They knew how to shoot, and when you have access, it's like catnip to documentary people. Like, we can't stop. So that was one of the things. And then just encouraging them to be bold and put their hearts into it, and not worry about what their characters wanted to say, but what they really saw. So I really like that. I think sometimes it's a little frustrating for me because I just want to get in there and be like, but people that I've been producing for have been very generous, and like, so for Philly DA, every week we would watch scenes, and go through it. It was kind of liberating to just be like, here's what I think, go do what you want, but here's what I think, and talk it through. So I like that part. I like that part a lot.
Yeah. Looking looking at yourself, going back to Gideon for a minute, because it's always like the good starting point. And you look at Gideon, but then you think of yourself 15, 20 years prior, when you were and I say just a lawyer, but when you were a lawyer, and you're here now. Is it little, I don't want to say anticlimactic, or is it just like, sure, like like, yeah, I'm a documentary filmmaker now? Because this wasn't planned. And it's funny how, the famous saying that people used to tell me growing up is that you make a plan and God laughs. Like, he just, like, you will just do something that you weren't planning on. So is this where you're
God
at?
definitely laughed. I mean, I was supposed to be a lawyer in Washington, D.C. We were both lawyers. We were so into being DC lawyers. We were young, and all of our friends were lawyers too. And we loved Washington, D.C. My parents live there. My siblings are there. So it was a nice setup like that. I could see a really nice life. And I was not supposed to be a documentary filmmaker. It never crossed my mind until I started just doing it. And then when I started doing it, I literally remember saying to Simon Kilmurray, who heads the IDA, after Gideon's Army, I saw him and I was like, yeah, except I'm never going to have another idea. Like, and he was like, you will have another idea. And I was like, I don't think so. So, for a person like me, I like to plan, I like knowing what's coming. This is like the greatest surprise. I think also when I look now, I didn't have this whole career plan. I just wanted to keep trying to do new things. And so I was very much like, all right, what's next? I need to get the money for this. I need a producer for this. So I just was focused on those tasks instead of like a grand plan. And then, like, look where we are. That's just what happened. So I do like to say to people, you can take a risk with things, because the one thing I will say is I am so perfectly content with what I do. Like, I literally can't imagine doing anything else except for making furniture. I would like to make furniture. I don't want to make it, but I want to, like, design it. And then
Really?
I really like furniture. Yeah.
Wait, is there a documentary in the works? Please tell me there's gonna be one of Dawn to try to design the perfect couch. There's gotta be.
I just really like furniture. I like design. But I just think of the people I've met
Mm,
and the things I've been able to do. And one of the biggest things is what I've shown my kids,
mm.
because they see how hard it is. Like, there's nights when I'm like, in Trapped, we did not have enough money. Marilyn and I were like killing ourselves. We would wake up at night, like, how are we going to pay these bills? How are we going to get back down south? Like, we started the movie with $5,000 and we were just racing to catch up the money with the movie. And then I was like, I'll never do that again. Like, it was a little too much. I went into debt. It was a little too much. But I can't. Can you imagine the people I've met because of taking that chance? President Obama, Michelle Obama, Lady Gaga, Oprah. Like, that lawyer in Capitol Hill was not going to meet those people. And just, I've never lost my curiosity about people, or about how to do something differently or better, or how to push myself. Like, so as long as that's the case, like, I'm good. Just, there's so much more to do for me to try. And that's my challenge now, is like, how do I grow as a filmmaker? People always say, do you want to do scripted? I'm like, yeah, but there's so much more to do in documentary. It's such a beautiful form.
Yeah.
And it's like this elusive quest for the perfect film. Like, you're like, there's so much hope and potential that first day of shooting, and then you have to make trade-offs and compromises, or someone can't be there, or there's a pandemic. and it's never the film that you think it is going to be when you start. It's never that.
Wait,
But
the pandemic got in the way of like making a movie? What?
I was going to make another movie. Yeah, no.
Wait, actually, now you bring up some before. I was wondering, because you started off being a lawyer first, and life happens the way it happens. But do you feel an advantage or disadvantage not going to film school? Because I know like there's always that ongoing argument within Hollywood: go to film school, or you're just a naturally amazing filmmaker. Whatever the case may be. Do you think you would have done it if you knew what you knew now? Would you have gone into it from the jump, or you think you like getting this kind of background?
I think if I had gone to the thing that I miss from film school is being able to study film history. There's like those cocktail conversations, and they're like, "Have you seen the scene from the French? Blah, 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 and clearly you are influenced." I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So there's that, but I actually think, and this is also particular to my gender and race, I might have been intimidated in film school and not confident. And as a lawyer, I kind of leaned into the business sides of things earlier. And so I was like, what are people buying? How do I get it funded? Where can it go? And like, I'm good at figuring out those pieces of things. And so then the art of it, like I just had to like push aside the voices saying, who do you think you are? So, and I don't have those voices now. If I had been in a class with a bunch of know-it-alls, I might have been like, what am I doing? Like, also there's like your grandmother's voice in your head, like, you need to get a job. So it just really wasn't in my, it wasn't on my wheelhouse. My father was a photographer, so I always had this like kind of fluency with, and I had a camera since the time I was 15. But that was like a hobby for me. It wasn't my job.
So art was there. It was embedded.
Art was definitely there. It was definitely there. Like, he would always talk about the light in places, and I'd love to watch him like develop film. He had this studio it was on the east side in New York City, and in the 50s, those carriage houses. They have really tall ceilings and kind of frosted windows and cobblestone floor, and the light is spectacular in there, and that's where his dark room was, and like setups. So like that's I can like smell those photography chemicals, and and he would have big prints all over our house. So and he just hung out with artsy people.
Yeah.
So it was like around.
I mean, do you find it, I would say it's weird, but just serendipitous, like how you have that foundation in your life there, and you still found your way to art in the end. Like you try, I mean, I'll say you ran away from it, but you were going to be a lawyer. Like that was like the pathway.
I kind of ran away from it.
I know it's so it becomes a little spiritual, like art. If art has you, it has you. Like there's nothing you can do about it. If that's where your heart and passion is, it kind of just reels you in.
The place I always felt the most peace was like taking pictures. And then like once I saw a documentary, I was like, you can make them talk. So then it was like, oh, I want to make those pictures talk. That's why the way I see it was so special to me. Like, I do have a sense of what photographers go through. Photographers usually don't talk, they express through their images. And so I understood Pete's trepidation about adding voices to images, that maybe that was going to ruin it. Maybe the picture should just speak for itself. But that's actually my philosophy about film. That's why I would never be in my own film. Like, the picture should speak for itself. So whatever you take from it, I'm happy with that, because you have a whole set of life experiences so I can't predict what's gonna touch you, It's because you're you, and that's what's so beautiful about all art, is it speaks to you for reasons you can't explain.
My last question for you, and it's sometimes it ends up being the the most difficult, is especially for a documentary filmmaker, do you do you still have that one project in you that you're like, no holds bar, give me unlimited funds, it gets made? Or did you already make it? I think a lot of people always ask, like, what's your passion project? But sometimes I feel like filmmakers may have already done it. Do you think you have that one thing still? And maybe you don't even know what it is yet, but there's that one more piece of expression in you that you haven't let out yet, that you're waiting for the right time?
Yes, it's still out there. It's she's coming. Um, I yes, definitely. Yes, there's a scripted one, and then um, there's a documentary expression. So
So I guess my question to it, do you think you've been building, like, you needed all these others? You needed Gideon, you needed Bobby Kennedy, you needed, way I say, you needed John. Did you need those to build to what that's going to be?
I I um I think so. And then I think for the documentary project, I think the hardest thing is going to be like kind of letting go of some of what I've learned, and not, you know, like now I know like how to get a crew together, how to do XYZ, da 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 da. I kind of got to let all that go and like break the rules, break my own rules, you know? Um, and for the scripted project, um, it's just like, how do I feel confident enough that I can actually pull it off? Because it's kind of ambitious. So, like I want to have like a little movie under my belt first. When my grandmother always tells the story of like when I was 2 and I was learning to walk, I used to like hold the wall and I would only walk around the perimeter of the room, and they couldn't get me to leave the wall and come into the middle of the room until she realized like I really loved her keys, and she went into the middle of the room and she was like holding the keys, and so I had to walk to her. And I feel like that's what it's like for me with scripted, is like I gotta leave the safety and just realize, I can do it, and just be not so afraid to fall. So
Well, I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I can't wait for it. Listen, Charles Guggenheim Symposium honors, a master of documentary film every year, and you have shown that it's well deserved. And I can't wait to see the next 8 or 10 that you deliver, with time in between. Like, I'm going to advocate for you for time. I'm like, just give Dawn like a few more months, like whatever you need. Let us know. But no, congratulations on this honor. Congratulations on, I mean, this career, and thanks for running away from law in the right way, of going and taking on this career, because your films are special. They really are.
thank you so much. I always love talking to you, and I really appreciate this award. I'm kind of bowled over by it. So
There we go.
thank you.
Thanks for everyone for watching, and make sure to watch all of Dawn Porter's films, and watch her new film that's going to be available for free. Thanks again.